Do you want to be free? Then stop bleeding in public. Every man who prides himself on being transparent is in reality a prisoner of his own emotions, a puppet with its strings exposed. The world doesn't respect you for being sensitive. It learns how to strike you. Uncontrolled emotion is the greatest gift you can give your enemy. Every outburst of yours is a map of your weakness. Every tear is a confession. To be human is not to be hostage to emotion, but to master it. Whoever doesn't learn to fall silent inside will end up being shaped from the outside. And if that sounds too harsh for you, perhaps you're not yet ready for freedom. If you can't handle this kind of truth, you might as well leave now. But if you can, like this video and stay with me. Because here we don't offer consolation, we offer power. True mastery begins where automatic reaction ends. The fool reacts to the first blow. The wise waits. He observes, he measures. He strikes back when everyone has already forgotten what started the fight. That is the secret of those who don't merely survive but prevail. Emotional control is not repression, it's strategy. It's the difference between being a toy of your feelings and being the architect of your own existence. Have you noticed how the most dangerous people in the room almost never speak? They don't shout, they don't have an opinion on everything, they don't react to the slightest provocation, they watch. Silence for them is not absence, it's concentrated presence. It's the sound of power that needs to prove nothing. In a world that talks too much, he who is silent becomes an enigma. And an enigma, my friends, is feared. Words reveal, but silence reveals even more, because it forces the other to fill the void with their own fears. Well-used silence dismantles egos, creates discomfort, disorients the fool, and elevates the wise. That is why, for Machiavelli, and for me, silence is a weapon. It doesn't destroy by contact, but by expectation. It kills in the void. And the void is where the weak go mad. But let's go deeper. True emotional detachment is not apathy. Apathy is weakness disguised as calm. What I speak of here is sovereignty. It's feeling everything, without being enslaved by anything. It's looking into the eyes of insult, rejection, loss, and standing tall, unshakable, undisturbed. It's not about suffocating feelings, but training them like you train a wild beast. What you feel must not dominate you. It must obey you. He who governs his inner world fears no external storm, and there is no greater freedom than that, to be master of your emotions while others beg for affection, cry for approval, and sell themselves for scraps of attention. Want to know if you are free? See how much someone else can still unbalance you. If they knock you off balance with a glance, a silence, or a comment, then, my friend, your empire is built on sand. The first reaction is always the most revealing, and therefore the most dangerous. The world is not governed by those who react first, but by those who understand that every explicit emotion is a blueprint for manipulation. Impulsive anger exposes your weak spot. The need to defend yourself betrays your insecurity. Every justification you utter is a flag screaming, "Hit me here." And then the players appear, sniff out your fragility, and turn you into a piece on their board. He who always reacts is late, and the late never rule anything. In the game of power, the first to lose control has already lost. Therefore, learn the art of the pause. Learn to watch others destroy themselves trying to understand why you haven't said a word. Silence, when delivered after an insult, is worth more than any answer. Between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lives your freedom. Your greatness lives there. It is there that the weak explode and the strong grow. Most people don't realize that, by reacting without thinking, they're surrendering. They're command center to someone else. They're saying, "You now control my emotional state." A crooked glance, an ignored message, a clipped tone, and there goes your stability. What kind of king is shaken because a servant coughed? If you don't master that interval between what hits you and what you express, your crown is made of paper. Train that space as a warrior trains his sword. Expand it, fortify it, make it your secret stronghold, because it is there that the true throne resides, the throne no one sees but which commands all. Emotional clarity has become a fetish of the weak. They say, "I'm transparent, I speak my mind." Translation, "I'm predictable, manipulable, and an open book for anyone who wants to use me." Ambiguity, my friend, is a fortress. To be indecipherable is to be respected. When you don't reveal your intentions, you keep others on edge, and the fear they harbor about what you might do is more powerful than any real action. The world respects those who reveal themselves in small calculated doses, those who don't cry in public over every wound, but bleed in silence until their flesh turns to armor. Ambiguous is not the one who lies. Ambiguous is the one who doesn't kneel at the altar of compulsive emotional exposure. To be a mystery is an elevated form of command, and when everything seems on the verge of exploding, don't react. Withdraw. Disengagement is the most elegant and brutal way of saying, I don't need this. Absence is the new power. In an era where everyone screams to be heard, disappearing is a sentence of superiority. The weak confront because they want to prove something. The strong turn their back because they have already understood everything. Not explaining yourself, not insisting, not correcting misunderstandings. This weakens the other more than 1,000 arguments. Continuous presence wears people down, but absence imposes. And silence, when sustained with dignity, makes even your enemies wonder whether they've lost you or never had you. Learn to read others. Every outburst of anger, every sigh of frustration, every word uttered at the wrong time, each is a map. A shrewd observer turns others' emotions into coordinates of power. He who talks too much gives away his weaknesses. He who reacts too much gives away his soul. And you, if you are wise, will listen more than you speak. The true strategist does not say, I feel. He observes and thinks, I know what you feel, and I know what I will do with it. Here lies the difference between the naive and the master of influence. One drowns in his own emotions. The other navigates others' emotions like a captain at the helm. The pinnacle is becoming invisible, a force that does not need to assert itself, a center that does not move yet around which everything revolves. Such beings do not argue, they do not hurry, they do not need to be present to command. They are the ones no one fully understands, yet everyone perceives. Their absence weighs heavy. Their neutrality imposes. It is not about being cold, but unbreakable. The invisible strategist acts like a shadow. He is there, even when no one sees him. And when he decides to intervene, he doesn't need to shout. A gesture suffices. He needs no persuasion. He simply is, and that is enough to bend the atmosphere to his will. We now arrive at the most uncomfortable lesson for modern man, the art of not reacting. We live in an age where everyone feels obliged to say something, to take a stand, to opine, as if silence were a crime and restraint a shame. But listen well, immediate reaction is a public confession of your weakness. He who reacts impulsively reveals above all that he has been touched, wounded, unbalanced. And what does that mean? It means he can be manipulated, that he carries visible buttons anyone can press. You think you're being authentic when you respond in the heat of emotion, but you're just telling the world, I'm controllable. True strength is not never feeling. It's feeling everything, and yet remaining immobile like a rock in a storm. That is why silence is more than the absence of speech. It is dense presence, pure dominion. A man who stays silent when all around him shout is feared, because he did not succumb to the collective frenzy. His quiet disturbs more than any speech. Silence, used strategically, can dismantle egos, unsettle arguments, dissolve conflicts, and above all, reveal truths that would never be spoken aloud. It forces the other to confront himself. Have you seen how people rush to fill an awkward silence? Well, silence reveals where the pain resides. He who knows how to be silent at the right moment is an architect of tension, a sculptor of authority. And if you want to begin mastering the art of subtle power, first learn to master your own mouth. But don't be mistaken. Silence alone is not enough. It must be accompanied by something even rarer, detachment. The man attached to pride, to control, to the need to be right, he will never know true emotional freedom. Detachment is not coldness, it's not apathy. It's the serenity of one who has already won within. It's knowing that your peace is worth more than any argument, that your energy cannot be wasted trying to correct someone who doesn't want to understand or save someone who doesn't want to be saved. It's choosing where to bleed, with whom to fight, what to ignore. He who lives trying to prove his worth has yet to discover his own. Detachment is the end of emotional begging. It is the beginning of sovereignty. He who no longer needs to win, he has already won. And here we arrive at the most Machiavellian point of all: control of time. He who sets the rhythm of an interaction controls the narrative. He who responds immediately dances to someone else's tune, but he who pauses, who observes, who delays his response until the precise moment, he assumes the invisible throne of the situation. The pause is not hesitation, it is dominion. It is the interval in which the world scrambles to guess your next move. Most feel uncomfortable in that gap, but it is precisely there that power is born. The pause generates doubt, generates projection, generates fear, and he who controls time controls the psyche. Want to be unpredictable? Then abandon impulse and embrace the pause. Become the maestro of silence and the dictator of tempo. The world rushes. You do not. You move when the time is right. And when you move, no one is prepared. There is something divine in ambiguity. In the modern world, everyone wants to be clear, transparent, predictable, like emotional storefronts awaiting validation. But I tell you, what is too transparent is fragile. What exposes itself fully surrenders to the mercy of others. Ambiguity is not lying, it is protection. It is the wisdom not to give your soul up at the first thirsty glance. The ambiguous one is the enigma that paralyzes, the sphinx that forces others to interpret themselves before you. It is not about manipulation, it is about preservation. To keep your essence hidden behind 1,000 masks, as the artist does. The ambiguous man does not lie. He reveals only what is necessary, and that terrifies the weak, not being able to decipher someone, because the indecipherable cannot be controlled. And then we reach the apex of silent power, disengagement, the art of disappearing, not out of weakness, but by choice. The true strategist knows that in many battles, the greatest blow is to withdraw, not to react, not to insist, not to explain. It is to let the void do the work for you, the absence that wounds more than presence, the vanishing that raises more questions than 1,000 arguments. Disengagement is the most elegant way to say, I do not recognize you as worthy of my energy. It is the supreme gesture of autonomy, not out of pride but lucidity. While the other shouts, you depart. While the other demands explanations, you remain silent. Because there are moments when staying is losing and leaving is winning with class. True power lies in knowing how to vanish at the exact moment and letting silence speak for you. And here then comes the birth of the invisible strategist. He who does not need to raise his voice nor declare intentions. He whose presence alone shifts the atmosphere. He does not vie for space, he imposes gravity. He does not demand respect, he attracts it. He does not answer attacks, he renders them ridiculous by contrast with his impenetrable calm. The invisible strategist isn't neutral, he is dangerous. Not because he loves conflict, but because he masters timing, moods, gestures. He is the conductor of an emotional orchestra only he can hear, and others, without knowing why, react to him as though reacting to their own destiny, invisible yet inevitable, silent yet present like a sentence. A man like that need not win, because he already governs. But attention, this kind of power isn't built with cliched phrases or self-help manuals. It demands practice on the internal battlefield. You must burn your weaknesses in silence, confront your fears without seeking an audience, master your impulses without waiting for applause. This power demands discipline, not pose. He who seeks to appear calm is still a slave to appearance. He who is calm even under attack, he is free. Each time you silence an impulsive response, you lay a brick in the castle of your sovereignty. Each time you refuse an unnecessary argument, you dig a moat between yourself and the chaos of the world. And each time you observe rather than react, you train your gaze on what truly matters, not what they say to you, but what they're trying to hide. Power is born where control is born, and control is born within, not without. But Nietzsche, isn't this coldness? Ah, my friend, that is exactly what the fragile will say to try to drag you back into emotional mediocrity where they dwell. They call everything they can't control coldness. They call your clarity arrogance. They call your freedom indifference. The problem was never that you feel too much, it was that you let yourself be guided by it, like a slave carrying a proud chain. I tell you, There is no honor in being predictable. The one who feels everything and reacts to everything is like a marionette in the hands of the world. Freedom begins when you say, I feel, but I do not surrender. I perceive, but I do not react. I listen, but I do not respond. Yet. And that yet is what haunts those who face you. Because when you act, no one sees where the blow came from. They only feel the impact. And if you've made it this far without taking offense, then yes, you are already above the majority. The majority, that emotionally indigent horde, wants to feel embraced, validated, justified in their hysteria. But I did not come to bring comfort. I came to bring steel. I came to remind you that there is no respect where there is lack of control. That true respect begins when you stay silent, where you once shouted, withdraw where you once pleaded, and smile where you once exploded. This is not apathy, this is superiority. They want to teach you that baring your teeth is strength. I teach you that wielding silence is royalty. Now, if you've reached this point with your soul intact and your mind sharper, then show the algorithm that you are not part of the majority. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this manifesto with those still chained to their own temperament. Let silence spread like a whisper of power. But maybe you still doubt. Maybe you think that self-control is coldness, that restraint is a kind of emotional prison. Naive. The true prison is impulsivity. It's waking up regretful for having said too much, for having reacted as expected, for having been predictable like a trained dog. Freedom is not inventing, but in the conscious choice of when and if it's worth speaking. I ask you, how many times have you destroyed yourself by not knowing how to wait, by rushing blindly into the battlefield? The strategist observes before striking and often does not strike, because he has already won with his gaze, with his posture, with his disinterest. Freedom begins the moment you choose not to be shaken by what once defined you. Observe the great men, not those who shout, but those who impose silence. They don't compete for attention, they command presence. They don't weep over others' backs, they bury their pain on the altar of greatness. They need prove nothing to no one, because they have already proven to themselves that they can live without applause, without likes, without justification. And if you are still here, it's because something within you recognizes that truth, perhaps still timid, perhaps still silenced, but hungry for liberation. So I tell you, to be great, first you must be unshakable. And to be unshakable, you must stop being emotionally domesticated by a society that wants you docile, reactive, easily manipulated. Choose the opposite. Choose mastery. Yes, mastery, but not the mastery of the brute, of the tyrant, of the one who shouts to appear strong. I'm speaking of subtle, invisible, almost mystical mastery, one that transforms a mere glance into command, silence into decree. The modern world is so full of noise that someone who knows how to fall silent with purpose becomes a threat. And I warn you, you will be misunderstood. They will call you cold, distant, arrogant. Let them. The man who knows himself lives no longer to be understood. His mission is not to be comprehended, but to remain unbreakable. The day your inner peace becomes more important than external approval, on that day you will cease to be common man. You will become a force. And let it be clear, I am not inviting you to suffocate your humanity. I'm calling you to elevate it, to transmute your emotions into refined, strategic, potent energy, crying, feeling, loving, all that remains, but now under command. Tears will only fall if they serve greatness. Love will only be given if there is reciprocity of spirit. Anger will only manifest as a blade, never as chaos. This is the difference between the savage and the sovereign. Both feel, but only one rules. He who masters himself does not need to dominate others, because others before him simply bow. They feel, they know, they fear, because true power does not shout, it pulses. Perhaps now you see why this path is not for everyone. The majority wants comfort, not consciousness. They want relief, not lucidity. They prefer living by reaction like leaves in the wind, blaming the weather, life, others, for every tremor. But there is a rare caste, a forgotten lineage of men and women who refuse to be slaves to their own emotions. They look at themselves with severity, train their minds as one trains a wild animal, and build their own silence into a fortress. You will recognize them. They do not hurry. They do not explain themselves. They do not beg. They simply exist with presence. And presence, my friend, is a form of authority. A man who controls his fury, his anguish, his desire, he is dangerous. And now, before you go away with your head full of uncomfortable truths, I ask you, do you really want to follow this path? Do you really want this freedom that demands so much? If so, then prove it. Start now, not by impulse, but by choice. Control yourself. Breathe. Observe the world without letting it capture you. And if you are still here, if you can, still bear this kind of truth, like this video and subscribe, not for me, but for you. Because if all this wounds you, it's because it calls you. And if it calls you, it's because something in you has awakened that can never be put to sleep again. Welcome to the beginning of your strength.